Good afternoon to everyone and happy Sabbath. Well, this is the last week or the last Sabbath for the month of February, November. December na pala, no? Next week. Grabe yan, bilis naman. 1 year older na naman tayo. Okay. So next month, December the 2nd, we will have our Bible study. Ang topic po natin yung True Nativity Story. Okay? So, again, we will do the digital ad and hopefully we will be able to have more people attending the Bible study with us. You still remember the last Bible study we had? You still remember? Ano yung topic natin? Ha? Okay, hindi, ano? Yeah, yung tungkol dun sa hell. Yeah, you're right, So, what do you think of the Bible study last month? Yung tungkol dun sa, other people burning in hell. What do you think? Okay ba? Okay.
Live webcast.
Ha?
Live webcast nag-stop.
Ha?
Yung live webcast.
Yung live broadcast.
Nag-stop.
Nag-stop. Nag-stop yung live broadcast. Bakit nag-stop yung live broadcast? Naputol kasi masyadong mahaba. Ganyan ba? Maybe, So, what do you think? Was it well presented? Okay ba yung presentation? Nakalimutan niyo na, no? Yay! Yeah. Actually, we mentioned to the people, and I was in front, and I can see the reaction of the participants, especially those who attended with us, yung mga guests natin, those who attended with us for the first time. So when I mentioned that there are about 100 billion people who had lived since the time of Adam until now, we asked how many of the 100 billion people are burning in hell. Medyo napaisip po sila. Okay, and then we further asked is that if there are roughly around 7.3 billion people here on earth today, and if the estimate of 1.5 are Christians, so you have 5.8 billion people who are non-Christians. So are these people, the 5.8 billion of them, destined to burn in hellfire? Well, I think a lot of people, those who came and fellowship with us, I think they took stock of that and napaisip yan. I think they thought about it. Okay? And we said that if God is indeed loving, and He will not consign all of these billions of people to be tormented forever and ever. For all eternity. Because we know that God is loving and He is not a monster or a hateful God. And there was a question no sa Q&A portion, and this was a question of the Lazarus and the rich man. Right? Because this is the maybe the favorite parable when it comes to heaven and hell, right? And there was this question that came up, and we did respond to the question, but I think we did not do a fantastic job, okay, in explaining the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man. What do you think? Were you fully convinced of what I said and what Mel said? Most probably hindi, no? Okay. You were just very polite, okay, cordial. And when I went home, in the car, I was thinking about it. I said, could I have answered it better or differently? Actually, we did not respond. I mentioned to Mel. I said, Mel, we did not respond to the question. We brushed it aside. We said that it was a parable. Alam natin yung parable, di ba? Ano yung parable? Parable is a tale. Story lang yan. Did not happen in reality. But I felt that though it is true, but I felt that we should explain it far better than just to brush it aside. Tayo naman, in our case, we understood this story very well. Yung parable of the Lazarus and the rich man. I don't know, I'm just presuming that you understand the story. Okay, that's my presumption, right? So if you don't, maybe this is something that we need to talk a bit, you know. But I have only 15 minutes to talk to you about this one. Maybe I can extend it to around 20. When you look at this parable, in fact, it is very interesting. If you are not in this church, if you do not know the truth, you'll think that this is the real thing, right? Kasi it's not easy to explain it out. Okay, I will not go through the account. I'm sure you are familiar with the account. So I just mentioned a few points. Okay, unless that you come to understand God's plan of salvation, aided by the 7 annual holidays of God, this parable is exceedingly difficult to explain. Okay, and for a common professing Christian who has been brought up in the concept of heaven and hell after death, you know, the immortality of the soul going to heaven immediately and going to hell, you know, if they're bad ones, almost immediately, you know, it's difficult to debunk this, I can tell you for a fact now. And why is it so? Because when you go through the story, this is the storyline of the story. Okay? He said Lazarus died, and he died first. Lazarus, the beggar, he died, and he was carried by an angel to be with Abraham. So it was silent when this did happen, but he was carried by an angel to Abraham. Okay. And then the rich man also died. The rich man died a bit later. So when the rich man opened his eyes, he saw Lazarus, who was already with Abraham. Okay. To them, this time sequence of one dying first and the other one dying later, and the one dying later, the rich man opened his eyes. Nakita niya, si Lazarus nandun na kay Abraham. So to them, you know, this fits perfectly into the timing of the death. Immediately after death, Lazarus went to heaven, and later on, the rich man died. He went to hell, and when he's in hell, he looked up and he saw Lazarus. Ang mahirap i-explain ito. It's very difficult to explain. The rich man was in hell, and this hell has a fire. It said, right? It is in hell. The rich man asked for some water because he was in torment. Okay. Why? Because the environment was hot and he was getting thirsty. Okay, because, well, sinusunog. So he was being burned. So, you know, as if you are cooking barbecue, right? So you want a glass of water beside you, you know, while you cook your chicken barbecue, right? And this man was in hell, being tormented in the fire. So that is a perception, right? So the rich man requested Abraham to send someone from the world of the dead, from the spirit world, to the land of the living. His 5 brothers. Ang nakahirap na explain ito. So that means there are still people living. That's why he requested for some people from the dead to go back and tell his brothers so that his brothers will not come to hell or go to hell. Okay? This suggests that there were still people living the land, you know, or living in the land of, or alive in the land of the living. While he was in hell, and the Lazarus was with Abraham in supposed to be heaven. Okay, and there were some people still living on earth. Medyo super hirap. I-explain, di ba? And Abraham said that it was not possible because of the great distance that has been set in place. This distance can be meaning the distance of space and time, and can be the distance between the physical world and the spiritual world. Hindi. Patay na kayo. Imposible naman bumalik, di ba? Sabi ni Abraham. So, that means, immediately after death, okay, they went to the spirit world, and there are still people left living on the physical world. And Abraham said that Moses and the apostles and the prophets, are here, and they can listen to them. So that means, almost immediately after death, umakyat na, buwaba na sila. At yung iba, buhay pa. Okay? It suggested the present time. Medyo mahirap, di ba? O sige, tapos na yung message ko. Medyo mahirap na talaga. Now you can see how difficult it is to explain. Okay? Without understanding the annual holidays of God and God's plan of salvation in states by states, talagang mahirap mo i-explain ito. Okay? You can argue about a lot on the timing. Okay? What is this parable talking about? Ano yung great essence of this parable? The great essence of this parable is that there is a judgment day. Okay? I think that is the message. The message is that there is a judgment day that is coming. Right? And it has no reference, basically, since it is just it's a tale, it's a story, it's a parable. The message of the parable is that there is a judgment day that is coming. If you do well, you'll be rewarded. As the reward of Abraham is. And if you do wrongly or badly or wickedly, well, you will have your place in the final lake of fire. Okay. Tayo alam natin yan. But a lot of people, they don't know that. Okay. So the key to understanding of all of these things, okay, is the understanding of God's plan of salvation for mankind. The great lesson here is that there is a judgment day, for all people. The righteous will rise to life, to eternal life, and of course the wicked will rise to judgment. So we can read this in John chapter 5. Let's go to John chapter 5 for our first scripture. John chapter 5. And this is what Jesus said in verse 26. John 5:26. He said, as the Father has in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself. And he has given him authority to judge because he is the Son of Man. He said, do not be amazed at this, for a time is coming when all who are in the graves will hear the voice and come out. Those who have done good will rise to live, and those who have done evil will rise to be condemned. The better word here should be judgment. So we know that there is a time, because we know God's plan. So we know there's a judgment, and there is a time of the resurrection of the dead. Okay, the first resurrection of the dead will be to life eternal, and the second resurrection to a physical resurrection will be judged. So we understand this. A lot of people, they don't. Okay, so for us, it's very, very clear. This is talking about the resurrection. The first resurrection of the first fruits and the great white throne. For us, very clear. But for the others, they cannot understand this one. Okay? So, what we can do is to drive them to the point of the lesson of this parable. The lesson of this parable is about judgment. Okay? That there is a day of judgment that is coming. In many parables, Jesus would explain it himself. Right? In many parables, Jesus would explain it himself. And in many instances, Jesus gave a parallel parable. Okay. So Jesus Christ, okay, would give one parable, okay, and he would explain it himself. We know that. There are lots of parables like those. And there are parables that are related, or they are similar or identical. Okay. And when you look at this parable altogether, it actually tells a particular story. Okay. And the story of these parables, one of these days I'll talk to you about it, is that when you look at these parables and you just group them together, you will actually see God's plan of salvation. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, is that Jesus gave parallel parables, just like, for example, the parable of the talent and the parable of the minas. Parehas yan. They tell exactly the same lesson. The parable of the lost sheep and the parable of the lost coin. Parehas din yan. Okay, the lesson is the same. The parable of the sower and the parable of the wheat and the tare. And the parable of the hidden treasure and the parable of pearl of great price. They are also identical, they are parallel. Okay, of course, the parable of the wedding banquet and the parable of the great feasts. So, related yan, mga parable na ganyan. Okay, at the same time, Jesus Christ would go on and explain the parable in many instances. Okay. So, if we want to explain this one, this parable, I will allow Jesus Christ to explain to you and not me. Okay, the parable of the rich man, the Lazarus and the rich man. Okay, so let us allow Jesus to explain this parable to us. So how do we do this? Please turn with me to Matthew 25. Okay. This is not a parable. This is exactly what Jesus said. And this is talking about the end of the age. Because this comes after Matthew chapter 24. 24 is the Olivet prophecy. So this one is Matthew 25, so it comes right after. Okay. So let's go to Matthew chapter 25 and let's start reading verse 31. So I want you to focus on the wordings. And you will be surprised or pleasantly surprised that the wordings are almost identical to the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man. And if there is any explanation to the parable of the Lazarus and rich man, it would have been this. And these are the words of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Matthew 25 and in verse 31. I will be reading from the NIV. He said, when the Son of Man comes in his glory. So that's the timing. What is the timing? The timing is when Jesus Christ, the Son of Man, comes in his glory, referring to his second coming. And the start. Okay? And this is what we know of as the first resurrection when he comes. He said, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. So he will start to judge. He said, all the nations will be gathered before him. So this is at his second coming. And he's talking about the great white throne judgment. He will sit on the throne and he will start to judge. And he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep and the goats. Okay, so he will put the sheep on the right and the goats on his left. And the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. Okay, so these are the righteous ones. He said, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Does this sound familiar to you? Right. Does this sound familiar? Why? Because the rich man, clothed in purple, living in extreme luxury, did not afford any relief for the poor beggar, Lazarus. Right? He did not. He saw him there outside at the door, but he did not bother, to take care of his needs. So Jesus said here, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me. Sounds familiar. It's talking about, related to the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. And we can recall the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. The question is, are they not talking about the same thing? And of course, it is. But this one is not a parable. This is a direct declaration of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I think that this is the explanation to the parable. He said, I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Okay? Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did you see you a stranger and invited you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick, or when did we see you in prison and go to visit you? And the king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it to me. Isn't it related to the parable of the rich man, Lazarus and the rich man? It is related. Okay? Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into eternal fire. Prepare for the devil and his angels. When is this? Timing. We know that. This is at the end of the age. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. Sounds familiar, right? The rich man. The rich man didn't do anything for Lazarus. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. And he said, for I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me. And they will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or in need of clothing or sick or in prison? And we didn't help you. And he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Okay. Simple. Right? Jesus explained it to us. Right now, this eternal punishment is not eternal punishing. So this eternal punishment is a one-time punishment. It's not eternal punishing that you are eternally being punished. Eternal punishment is just a one-time thing. So it's a punishment, that is eternal. Done. Okay. So once you put Matthew 25 side by side with the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, I think that it explains itself. Yeah, and I believe that is how Jesus Christ would have explained it as well. Okay, and after you have clarified this, now you can go to the timing. And the timing of this is not immediately after death, because we do not have immortal soul. This is talking about the judgment. right? This is talking about a judgment at the return of our Lord and Savior, Jesus, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Okay, so I hope that we have a better perspective of this particular parable. So when we ask, at least we will be able to explain it a little better.